88.1 WHOV welcomes you to the Pastor's Study. The Pastor's Study in your church or any church is a place where the pastor goes to collect his thoughts, hear from God, study God's Word, and develop ideas and thoughts on what direction the church needs to take in leading others to Christ. The Pastor's Study is where the road to salvation is paved and the mysteries of the Bible revealed. The Pastor's Study on WHOV is a talk show that allows you, the listener, to come inside to find out more about the ministers of the gospel in the area and the good works they're doing across the region, the nation, and the world. Now here's your host, Pastor Kevin Swan of Ivy Baptist Church in Newport News, Pastor Ray Johnson, and Pastor John Young of Empowered Believers Christian Learning Center. The Pastor's Study is now open to the public, so come on in and find out God's plan for your life and his people.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Pastor's Study here on Smooth 88.1 WHOV, iHeartRadio. Pastor Kevin Swan live in studio with you today. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon on the campus of Hampton University. Hope everybody is doing safe and sound, and we want to jump right in. We have an action-packed show today. Lots of information that we want to cover. Pastor Ray Johnson is in the building. Pastor Ray, how you doing, man?
Man, I am well today in the midst of all of what we're experiencing. I'm glad that the S-U-N, but the S-O-N is shining in my heart, as we always say. So it's good to be with you again today, sir.
Absolutely. So we want to jump in. We have a number of guests that we have invited to the show today to discuss the coronavirus, and we're doing it at every level of government, local, state level, and federal level. And with us to start off the show, and we're so grateful to have her, Dr. Janice Underwood, who is the Chief Diversity Officer of the state of Virginia, first person in the history of the state to have this position, happens to be a Hampton alum as well. And so, Dr. Underwood, first of all, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Pastor Swan. It's so good to be back on the show with you all and just to say hello to everyone out there listening, and I hope everyone's safe and well.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Underwood, you have started an initiative with your new position, and one thing that really you're trying to do is to really get the clergy and the faith community engaged in your work. And can you talk about that and what you did last night also in your video conference call?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. So last night was the unprecedented gathering of faith and community leaders across diverse ideologies, which actually has never been attempted in Virginia quite in the way we did it last night. But due to the unprecedented nature of the COVID-19 crisis, we just realized that we have to engage all of our critical partners across the Commonwealth, and faith leaders like yourselves and those who are listening and those all over the Commonwealth are a vital part of who we see as partners and collaborators and allies. We're all a part of this state. It's going to take all of us working together as opposed to working in silos. So last night we convened over 2,900 faith leaders on a conference call that was literally unprecedented, not only because of the nature of all the faith leaders that were on, and I mean not just Christian, but every major religion was represented last night, but because the numbers were so high. We actually broke the record in Zoom, and they thought that they had to increase our capacity to have this call due to the unprecedented numbers. And so it was an amazing gathering of faith leaders and community leaders on the call, specifically so that we could galvanize these partners, because many of our faith leaders are on the front lines. They're they're working around the clock to serve the communities and membership that they have in their mosques and churches and temples. And so we just wanted to galvanize and build momentum with them. I will share with you, we had over 500 questions answered, and all those who registered for the call were happy to see myself and the governor and all those across the administration and the cabinet on last night. But we're going to stay in contact with them. And it's not too late to register. Let me say that. If you haven't registered and you want to register, we'll make sure we get information out through you how to register. But we're going to be staying in contact with all 2,900 folks because we know that you need information for your membership, for your communities, as well as for the solvency of your church. And so we're there to be a support and a help.
Yeah, we're talking with Dr. Janice Underwood, Chief Diversity Officer of the state of Virginia, and really trying to work with faith leaders across the state to address this particular issue, but even larger than that, just to kind of bring faith leaders together so that our voices can be heard. So again, Dr. Underwood, like you said just now, if someone wasn't a part of the call last night or someone wasn't able to get on, now they're just hearing about it for the first time, I'm sure you still want to include others in your work. So how can people get in contact with you, or what do they need to do to be included in your distribution list?
Yeah, so they can email veronica.cosby@VDH, as in Virginia Department of Health, at Virginia, all spelled out, .gov. veronica.cosby@VDH.Virginia.gov. If you email her directly, that's the quickest way to get part of this unprecedented group of allies. I know when we get together and we work together, we can build collective impact, and that's how we're going to stay in contact with you. And that's also how you can talk with us and let the governor and I know what are your needs. You know, Pastor Swan, I felt it was so important to seek partnership and solidarity with faith leaders across our state, in part because we realize in many cases, like I said before, you all are on the front line of support to your membership in the surrounding community. But secondly, I want to be sure that faith leaders receive the most accurate, actionable, and tangible information that you all can use right away for those you serve. And lastly, I'd just like to underscore, and this is such an important point, so I hope everyone listens to me. We realize that as this crisis continues, the definition of who is underserved and under-resourced will widen so broadly that those who traditionally didn't identify in those ways will find themselves in those marginalized spaces. So let me be clear. I am sure that you and everyone in the studio and many of the people who understand DE&I work know that underserved and under-resourced does not just mean the poor. It includes workers like you and I. It includes the middle class, even the upper class, who when they become sick or can no longer work, lose their income, or they may be hungry. I don't know. We don't know what this is going to be like in a few months. But if people are experiencing crisis and they can't get help, you are now considered vulnerable and at risk. And this virus does not discriminate. This virus does not care who you are or who you worship. So that's why it was so important that we galvanize the faith community, because you all are on the front lines, and we just want to build a partnership, synergy with you, and trust with you. That's
right. So again, if you're interested and you're not yet a part of this, you can email Dr. Veronica Cosby, veronica.cosby@VDH, which stands for Virginia Department of Health, .Virginia, all spelled out, .gov, and you can be included on the distribution list. Dr. Underwood, I know you're busy, so I want to get to one point of contention that is happening in the faith community that people have been sharing with me, and that is, we know that yesterday the governor issued a more stringent requirement of no more than 10 people in a gathering at one time, and that does also include churches and places of worship. Yet what is upsetting some of the faith community and clergy is the fact that what was listed on the essential open for business, so to speak, list are ABC stores. And so what is upsetting people is how, on the one hand, can you say that the Virginia ABC stores are listed as essential, but the faith community is not necessarily considered essential? Can you give some light on that to kind of help people understand what the positioning is?
Absolutely. And Pastor Swan, thank you so much for that question, because I really want to make sure that everyone hears me correctly. The governor and the administration and the unified leadership team that's leading these efforts care about every single Virginian. And so that executive order that came out yesterday on Monday, March 23rd, that does provide the 10-person mandate is for all institutions and organizations. So it's not that they're closing one place down So, for example, ABC stores or churches. Churches can stay open, but they must, due to the public health crisis, follow that mandate. But let me be clear. The faith community is an essential part of our society, of our state. And as a man of faith, the governor, really, that's the reason why we had the call yesterday, because the governor and I wanted to hear from the faith leaders of the Commonwealth. I'm a person of faith as well. But we wanted to make sure that you all know that we are making every decision with a health equity lens, and that includes the demographic of faith leaders and those of faith. So we want to be inclusive as opposed to exclusionary. Listen, the faith community is an essential part of our Commonwealth, and we want to make sure everyone is safe, and no one is prioritizing ABC stores over the faith community, because in part we need the faith community because you all are providing so much support to the community, and that's the reason why the governor wants you to know that I appreciate all the work that you all are doing.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that the ABC stores have to be mandated to do the same things that churches are doing, in that you still have to have a 10-person limit in your facility. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Underwood, we know that you're busy, and I do want to thank you. If there's anything else you'd like to quickly share before we end the interview.
Yeah, I just want to make mention that we're going to convene another call in April. And so all those who were registered for the first call and all those who'd like to register for the second call, we're going to invite you to keep the conversation going. This wasn't a one-and-done initiative. This is going to be part of a larger effort. It is my intention to build collective impact with all the faith communities that were represented last night, which include large and small churches. I heard from faith leaders from small churches and said, does that include me? It absolutely includes everyone, every synagogue, temple, mosque, and nonprofit faith organization. I want to share how our decisions are being made, as well as present to you all knowledgeable leaders on the front lines of this crisis, so that you have tangible guidance to help you all make informed decisions for the people you serve. So in the coming days, you will get updates on everything that happened for the first call, which includes access to the slides we shared, a summary of all the documents that were referenced, as well as links to different organizations that are reaching out to you all who want to provide financial assistance to the faith community, such as Dominion Energy. So I'm just really excited about the collective impact we're going to have. Stay tuned. We're going to keep doing this in my office, the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and all those who support these efforts. We want to stay in contact with you. Please email us, follow us on Twitter, send us an email, whatever you'd like to do. We want to hear from you. We look forward to your emails to veronica.cosby@vdh.virginia.gov. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Underwood. We appreciate it. And if I could just make one last comment, not for you to respond here, but to certainly share amongst the constituents, because, again, the issue of the comparison of the church to the ABC store was an issue. And then also there's an issue of, will there be any support? Will there be any assistance financially for churches who may not have the means to continue to operate as we are operating now with a 10-person limit? So I know that that's going to be a point of discussion. If you can address that in your communication, that would be helpful as well. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Underwood, for coming on. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Dr. Janice Underwood, who is the Chief Diversity Officer for the state of Virginia. And Pastor Ray, you know, we are definitely in some unprecedented times that we're dealing with. Churches are having to make some very interesting decisions about how to move forward.
Well, I'm telling you, I actually think, Pastor Swan, I know this may sound crazy and strange, but I actually think this is good for us during this season, because it's really causing us to really call upon the name of the Lord and really give an opportunity to really look at how do we kind of now employ some of our creativity in how we reach people, how we touch people, how we minister to people, and really gives us a chance to really get back to being very authentic in terms of how the gospel really first spread. I was just sharing with a friend of mine in regards to the book of Acts. The church began to grow and expound and expand through persecution and through difficulties. You would find Peter being flogged inside of the temple by the chief priests, inside of the public square. And then you would find moments where people were kind of concerned about who was going to get what in terms of the distribution of what we know today would be clothing, toiletries, fresh fruit, and those kind of things. The first deacons got put in place because they were solving issues like this when there seemed to be a scarcity of resource and there seemed to be limitations that were put on the society of those Jewish believers inside of Jerusalem and in Rome. So I think it's good.
So it is going to cause some creativity. It's going to cause some different responses for the church. And let me just ask you, man, because I've heard it from a lot of pastors, man, the perception issue of, on the one hand, essential is ABC stores. And yet that is on the same line as a hospital, a pharmacy, some other entity, and yet churches seem to be excluded. Now, you have been in the political realm, and I know that there's still some measure of separation of church and state and all that kind of thing. Can you kind of highlight for the listening audience how kind of, people are wondering, how did the church get left off? Why aren't we considered essential to the
services?
For what we do for our communities?
In many instances now, you've got to take a look at, what we really just kind of looked at the Johnson Act, the Johnson Amendment again, that comes back from 1954 in regards to that basically churches cannot perform or form or organize as political PACs, political action committees. However, that does not mean that we don't have the opportunity to speak to the issues in terms of gathering together and really do what we're supposed to do, and that is speak to the hearts of men and women to where culture begins to change. And as culture begins to change, now we become self-governed, where we will now live by the laws of the land in terms of having a moral compass. But I want to push the envelope a little bit further for people in this sense. When their perception exists, and this is just perception from a few and not all, that let's use the commentary of the ABC stores can open, but the churches need to close, that kind of thing. And we're not necessarily viewed or seen as essential services. What I want to caution us with that is that whose lens does that come from, number one? Because as you and I know, the African-American church, if you will, and the church at large, we are the ones that are supposed to stand in the gap between when there is disaster and when there is destruction, to ensure that there are moments of clarity and consensus where people are able to now be rallied around and pulled together underneath one banner, and that banner we believe here in these United States would be In God We Trust, and we know that God to be the God of the Scripture. So now I've got to ask the question, Pastor Swan, who are we? Have we defined who we are as the church and what we provide as the church and how we minister to people and how the impact of what we do helps to bring about a sense of peace, a sense of joy, a sense of calm, and also to use, government language, if I could say it that way, maintain a sense of order so that there isn't chaos and confusion that runs around out there.
Yeah, but I think from a perception issue, man, it's I think a lot of faith leaders that I've talked to is really wrestling with that notion.
Yeah.
And I think most of us understand why the ABC stores are still open. We don't have to spell that out.
Right.
But we also know in the faith community the impact of what we do. And we know that if you were to take away feeding programs that the churches provide, if you were to take away benevolence that the churches provide, if you were to take away all of that, that we would really be in a much dire situation. So it's difficult sometimes, and we know that the government has to walk a line, but at the same time, the church ought to be said somewhere that the church can still be actively engaged. And I know that the whole notion of worship, because if we gather together, for example, Pastor Ray, there was a church in Louisiana last night. They had 1,800 people in the worship service.
Right.
Pastor said, if you come, we're going to lay hands on you.
Right.
And I know that's threatening and scaring a lot of elected officials because they don't want people to gather that way.
Right.
We understand that. Mm-hmm. But we also have impact in other ways that go beyond simply gathering for worship.
Absolutely.
And I think that is what needs to be highlighted, so that people understand that churches do have food,
We have food banks.
We got a whole lot of other
clothing
things
closets
that people need.
Absolutely.
So we want to go ahead and jump in. We have the mayor of the city of Hampton, Mayor Donnie Tuck, is on the line. Mayor Tuck, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and before we begin our conversation, I want to tell you that I was just on a phone conversation with Congressman Scott, and he said as soon as he gets off that call, he will call you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm a little bit ahead of him.
Good.
Okay?
Yes, sir. That works out very well. So thank you again. I know you're extremely busy, and we're just trying to get word out and information. Obviously, the coronavirus affects everybody. So can you tell the listening audience from your vantage point as the mayor of Hampton what you see the cities are doing and what's happening to address this issue?
Well, let me offer, I think we are managing well. The unfortunate part of that is that the governor announced yesterday that school will be closed through the remainder of the school year. The challenge is, yes, they will have instructions and things they can do during the course of a day, but I don't think that they will be occupied the whole 7-hour school day. We don't have, our recreation facilities are closed, our community centers are closed. We don't have the type of programming in place that we would normally have either during the winter break or certainly during the summertime. So there's no place for the kids to go. And if you're talking about only essential work being open, most of our teenagers don't have essential jobs, with all due respect. So then you've got individuals who are told not to congregate. There's no place to go to channel their energies and no real, reasonable activities for them to engage in. So the challenge really is how do we still maintain, just how do we keep from getting into trouble? And so that's a concern for me. But other than that, we are functioning. The city hall is closed, but we still have our emergency management teams in place, our police, the fire, other first responders. People can still pay online. They can utilize 311 and 911. So those services are available. It's just that things are closed and we don't have the same normalcy that ordinarily would have.
So we're talking with Mayor Tuck of the city of Hampton. And Mayor, again, thank you for coming on short notice. Now, we've been hearing in the media the whole notion of social distancing is for the purpose of trying to flatten the curve, right, to prevent spikes from happening where people would have to rush to the hospitals, and then the hospitals would not be able to meet the demand of sick patients, basically. Are you able to comment at all on how Sentara is doing, how our hospitals are currently doing in terms of their ability to serve? Are we at the point where it's become critical? Are we still maintaining and keeping the numbers down? Are there any could you kind of share on that where we are?
Yes, I believe we're doing fine. I've been receiving texts from the president of Sentara Complex, Kapua Conley. They've set up drive-through testing, and that's from, I think, 10 to 2 during the week, and it's 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. And so they're very pleased with the numbers. They're not at the point of being overwhelmed. I think one of the challenges is it's Riverside, perhaps, and because Riverside is also a trauma facility, and so people are probably going there more immediately to be tested. But as far as Sentara Careplex in Hampton, there are no problems with that. The shelter in place, the social isolation, is because right now we don't know. There are not enough tests available to let people know whether or not they have COVID-19. The other part of that is that they figure that by the time you have the 2 weeks, you have some idea of whether or not you have the symptoms. But if you just randomly go out among the regular population, you don't know if you have it or not, then there's a real possibility of infecting somebody unknowingly. And so that's the big concern right now.
Yeah, and it's very complicated because you simply don't know who may be a carrier, right? And so you have to maintain that social distance. So Mayor Tuck, let me ask you this. So we're noticing around the country now that city mayors, not governors, but sometimes like Houston today or yesterday, San Francisco started it, New York has done it, where the mayors have decided on their own to do basically shelter in places. Do you imagine having to do that for Hampton, or do you still feel pretty confident with what the state with Governor Northam, what his decisions are? Do you see a place where you may have to say, well, Hampton is in a different space than maybe most of the state?
Well, let me share something with you and with your listeners. There are probably two things that separate us from the other mayors. One is that we are a deal and rule state. Mm-hmm. So with the exception of we're a deal and rule state, which means that individual mayors do not have the authority just to shut down the city, to make folks, to actually quarantine a city. That would actually have to come from the governor declaring an emergency and his doing it. That's why, in many respects, there are advisories from the governor about no more than 10, or he can shut down restaurants that allow folks to come in and dine in, things like that. But as a small city mayor, again, not being a strong mayor, so we have a council mayor as a form of government. So whereas I'm the figurehead, my vote doesn't count any more than the other 6 members of council. So that's something that prohibits me from being able to do that. But the other part, no, I don't foresee us doing that. If it happened, it would have to happen at the governor's level, not certainly at the local level.
Gotcha. That's good information to know. And so, again, if there's anything else that you would like to share with our listening audience relative to what the city is doing, Mayor Tuck, and again, thank you for coming on short notice. I know you're extremely busy.
Well, one of the things we have planned tonight at 7 o'clock is another Facebook Live conversation. I think it's also posted on YouTube, where we try and bring people up to date. We also will have the superintendent of our Hampton City Schools, Dr. Smith, as a guest, and he'll talk about what the schools are preparing to do, including possibly distribute tablets to those in grades 1 through 4. So they'll be able to do different kinds of work. But I think the challenge right now is just for folks to really to practice social isolation. The growth of what's happening here in respect to the spread of COVID-19 it's just been rapid. And I saw a graphic last night, I think, that said that in the first 100,000 cases around the world, I think it took maybe 21 days. The next 100,000 was 11 days. And then to go from 200,000 to 300,000 was 4 days. So we see exponential growth. And so the idea is to try and flatten that curve, and you flatten that curve by trying to keep people from coming in contact with one another who may have it, who may not be aware they have it, but that's what we're trying to do. So we just really want folks to try their best to just not be involved in crowds. I know people have to go to stores. I know they have to congregate in other areas, but again, try and keep distance between you.
Gotcha. One last question real quick. I know you said earlier that you don't have the authority to actually shut down the city. Would you consider, if it came to it, perhaps a curfew? Do you have that authority to do if it came to it?
That might be a little bit different. Again, I think we'd have to ask the governor for permission to do that even.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much, Mayor Tuck. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. So that's Mayor Donnie Tuck. And again, that was something that I didn't know, Pastor Ray.
Absolutely. And I was going to mention, I was hoping that we were able to keep him on to actually have him come back and explain the Dillon Rule historically, because Virginia being, April is coming up with Confederate History Month, and how that Dillon Rule kind of came in place in regards to so many people being a part of chattel slavery during that time. Now, we're talking eons ago, if you will, leading into the Jim Crow era and that kind of thing. And so to have him kind of explain that, and what it means historically, and then what it can mean in terms of the legislature, in terms of changing that today. So that would be a good conversation to have. But I know that we can't speak on behalf of the station here at Hampton University, but as a resident in the city of Hampton, I'm one of those people that believe that Hampton ought to, I believe in Hampton being, I have a saying that says, I think the city of Hampton ought to be Hampton-led, Hampton-born, and Hampton-bred. And so I know I'm voting for come May 6th.
Yeah. So
in the mayor's race.
Yeah, and I know that's a whole other conversation that we have this upcoming. And yet
we might not even have elections if there's a state of emergency in Virginia being declared by the governor. So we'll see.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that, again, each municipality needs to look at this from their own lens, right? But it sounds like that they're not really able to address it. Like, for example, there could be cities in the western part of the state that may not be dealing with this as much as, let's say, a city in Northern Virginia, which has a greater population, and yet you still have to. So again, having some honest conversation, trying to get information to you guys from every level of government so that you can be informed and to know what's going on. But it seems like, Pastor Ray, the most important thing that everybody is saying, no matter what level it is that social distancing is a must. It's a must.
Yeah.
And even now, just so everybody knows, we're in studio, we're practicing social distancing.
But before I came and made my way here, my elderly parents were saying, I know you and Swan, y'all came up together, y'all played ball together, now y'all pastor together at the same time, but y'all make sure y'all 6 feet apart in the studio today.
Yeah. So what we've done is, if you notice, we've limited the studio hosts.
Right.
So we don't have everybody in studio. Alvian is still at home.
Right.
Pastor Law
is at home. I know they're listening in.
Yeah, they're tuning in. And then we also have Pastor Young, who's not with us, and Pastor Akeem. So if you still have comments, though, we want you to post them on our social media page. We can't do call-ins today because we are waiting for other guests to call in so that we can get you the information.
Right.
But if you do have comments about what you want or what you see happening, please go ahead and go to our Facebook page, The Pastor Study, and we can get you taken care of that way. So we didn't take a break early. I think this would be a good time because I know on the other side we're going to have some things going on. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we'll continue with our guests on the show. Hope you're enjoying this so far. This is Smooth 88.1 WHOV. And we're back on The Pastor Study. Took a quick break. And we're back on, and Pastor Ray, we have our guests that have been calling in, and we are thankful for everybody joining us on such short notice.
Absolutely.
To share a lot of important information. We have with us now Congressman Bobby Scott is on the line with us. And Congressman Scott, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. How are you?
We're doing well. How about yourself? I hope you're safe and sound and everybody's good where you are.
We've safe and sound, but everybody's been busy. I understand you just had Mayor Tuck on the line. We're on a conference call with some federal agencies, getting straight what we need to be doing, and he had to get off because he had to talk to you. And I told him to tell you I was on the way.
Yes, he did. He gave that message. So thank you. We appreciate you. And I just want to say to the listening audience, every time that I've called Congressman Scott, he has been gracious enough to change his schedule to come on the air, and we're really appreciative of that, Congressman Scott. So I know you're busy, so I just want to jump.
I've been on conference calls 3 or 4 a day for the last week, so we've been meeting just not the ordinary way, and we've been working on trying to help the people of America get through this crisis.
Absolutely. So to that end, can you share with the listening audience what you are seeing from a federal level? I mean, we've talked about it already from a state level, from a city level. Can you share with us now what's happening at your level?
Well, certainly. We passed a bill a few days ago that made sure that people who got tested could get tested without copay or deductible, no cost for any kind of insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, employer insurance, even uninsured. No cost to get tested. Now, the tests aren't there, but when they are, people ought to be tested. We're working now on the new bill. The Senate is working on it. We're working on it to see if we can come up with an additional support that would provide health care coverage for any treatment involved in this. I can guarantee you that people are going to come up with very expensive bills. One movie star said he went to the hospital to get tested. They jerked him around, went back and forth, finally tested him, and then sent him home. No test results. He doesn't think the test is ever going to be done. No test results, no treatment, but he got a $9,000 bill.
Wow.
I suspect that people are going to need treatment. And so that's why we've put in there that the treatment costs ought to be covered, too. We know the education, closing schools is raising havoc. Many of our school children get their basic nutrition from school meals. We have provided additional funding so that they can go on what essentially the summer protocols where they deliver meals to children during the summer. So whatever they did last summer, do it now to make sure the children are being fed during the interim. We also provided a 2-week paid sick leave. If anybody gets sick and has to go on or be quarantined, they can get up to 2 weeks sick leave, and then a paid leave after that at 2/3 pay. The paid sick leave is at 100%, 2/3 pay. The Senate made us water it down so that it doesn't cover everybody we wanted, but tens of millions of people additional get that coverage. Right now, what we're working on is additional income support. People are talking about these $1,000 payments, $2,000 payments one time. If you can get unemployment compensation, you get 2/3. We're trying to make it 100% of your salary for as long as you're out. So that's certainly a much better benefit. And if we can keep people's income coming in, a lot of the other problems, homelessness, food problems, can't pay your bills, a lot of those problems start evaporating if we can keep people's income coming in. So we're working to help people. There are a lot of people that are going to be a challenge. We're talking about employees. Those are the ones eligible for unemployment compensation. If you're not technically an employee, you don't usually get unemployment compensation. So independent contractors and small businesses, we're trying to figure out a way to get them assistance, and that's so we're talking about that too. Colleges are having challenges. The room and board isn't being paid because you sent the students home. So how do you pay the debt service on your dormitory? What happens to your Pell Grant eligibility? Do you have to pay back your student loan you took out? We're trying to deal with all of those problems. In the House bill, we've got them covered. Now, the next Senate bill that they're talking about, and they have to be, before the bill becomes law, it's got to pass the House and the Senate. We have to, hopefully, the final version will include the House provisions that help colleges. So there's a lot we're working on, and hopefully this next bill, we can have as much help for individuals as we can. Frankly, the Democrats aren't as concerned about major corporations and CEOs and the high price bonuses as the Republicans are in the Senate. They had a provision, $500 billion, given to the Secretary of Treasury so he could pass it out almost without restriction. Last time we did that during the bailout in 2008, they bailed them out. People got the big bonuses. The stock dividends went out. And in the end, the workers were fired. They lost their pensions. And so the money went straight to all the uppity-ups. We're going to try to make sure that doesn't happen, so there hopefully will be strings, but we just don't know. That's what the debate is over in the Senate right now.
Yeah, we're talking with Congressman Bobby Scott, and I know you've come on extremely short notice, and I want to thank you for doing that. And so there are, as we call the little people, right? And I know you talked about it briefly, but there are a lot of like small business owners. We know that major corporations are going to probably survive, but what do you say to the small business owner, to the smaller entities that need to be open but can't work? Is there going to be any type of assistance or help for them?
The Small Business Administration will be making loans. There is a feeling amongst many that if you use the loan money to pay your workers, then you might not have to pay it back. If you use the money that you got to stick it in your pocket, then you ought to pay it back. So we're working those details out. The loans will should be available if we can pass another the bill. We're also trying to figure out, as I said, how to get people who are not traditionally, quote, employees, but either business owners, small business owners, or independent contractors, how to get them into the unemployment compensation benefit. Traditionally, the unemployment compensation is an employee benefit. The employer pays monthly into the unemployment compensation trust fund. So when people lose their jobs through no fault of their own, they can get coverage. Independent contractors don't pay into that fund, and that's one of the problems. Of course, independent contractors, many are misclassified. People working as if they were employees, they call them independent contractors. And I think one of the, either Federal Express or UPS, one of them, their workers are employees, and the other one, they're independent contractors. Well, they're doing the same thing, and sometimes we're talking about misclassification, but this is one of the reasons why people want to be employees. Employees get unemployment compensation, they get minimum wage, they get overtime, they get they have the ability to organize unions. Independent contractors don't get any of that, and unemployment compensation is one of those things that employees get that independent contractors don't get. But rather than argue about that difference now, we want to try to cover the independent contractors and small businesses if we can with unemployment compensation. But the business owners should be able to get loans to get them, help them through.
Got you. I really appreciate you, Congressman Scott, coming on. This has given us a lot of good information, and anytime you have something to share, you know you're always welcome to come on the show.
Well, thank you, and keep up the good work. You're getting the word out.
All right, thank you so much.
Let me mention one other thing
Sure.
we're trying to do in the House bill, and that is money to help elections. You know, a couple of days ago, the Republican governor of Ohio, late at night, the night before the election, canceled the Democratic primary. We want to be prepared for the November election so that it's not canceled. And if we wait till the last minute in preparing, a good case could be made for canceling the election. But we want to make sure if we start planning for it, we can have things like vote by mail, extended hours, early voting, so that people don't have to congregate at the polls. We can do that if we plan in advance. We can have an election. But if we mess around until the last minute, and somebody calls, say, like the governor of Ohio did, 11 o'clock at night, said, oh, there's a health emergency, we're not going to have an election, that would not be a good thing for this administration to be able to cancel the election.
Yeah, there's lots to think about. I tell you what, boy. I mean,
that's
all of this stuff is
like
unprecedented waters that we're in. And so again, thank you so much, Congressman Scott. You've been very helpful. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, that's Congressman Bobby Scott, who's on the line, and I, that's something, Pastor Ray, we didn't even consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, typically what happens is that whenever there's a national state of emergency, the current president, if he were to declare that, or the president at the time were to declare that, then the elections would be postponed, and then that particular sitting president would stay in place. So it seems as if political football maneuvering is kind of underway with this in regards to the coronavirus. Not saying that it's not real, not saying that it's not a pandemic, not saying that it's not a part of, being noteworthy enough to take a note of, but it seems that there may be some who may be maneuvering with political football with this in regards to this.
And that's the one thing in a crisis that you hope would not happen, but
right.
It's happening.
Absolutely.
That there's...
Next up is the governor of Arizona, from what I understand. But you didn't hear that on this show. I didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't say that.
No.
So, again, so we've heard so far from Dr. Underwood at the state level, and we've heard from Mayor Tuck at the local level.
Yep.
We've heard from Congressman Scott at the federal level.
Right.
So what have been your thoughts so far on all of this?
Well, I believe that what everyone is doing is really, what I'm hearing is putting people first. And I think in the midst of putting people first, making sure that there is the measures put in place to ensure, number one, that people are safe, number two, people are secure. But I really wanted to be able to ask Congressman Scott, and maybe we'll have him come back on. This could be a means toward looking at how we do healthcare in a different way, so that we could look at having more nationalized healthcare. And I know that scares many in regards to us being a market-based kind of economy. But when you have a moment like this to be able to reach people, touch people, it's great that they're putting in measures in place to be able to have a bill that will cover testing and not only just treatment. And I think that will go very well in terms of serving people.
Absolutely. We have with us the people just keep calling, and we're so grateful that everybody has agreed on short notice to call in.
Yeah.
We have with us the representative of the 95th District in Virginia. She's no stranger.
My girl.
She's no stranger to
My
the
girl
show.
is on the line.
Delegate Marcia Price is on the line. Delegate Price,
Hey, y'all.
how are you? How are you?
You know, I'm an extrovert, and so this is hard, but I'm managing.
Girl, you
'cause
can't
y'all
touch
keeping me
nobody. Don't
busy.
hug nobody.
Yeah, no hugs.
No hugs.
Hey, listen, I'm an extrovert too, so I'm feeling
Well,
it.
I'm gonna tell you the reason why I'm taking a lot of this really serious is because I'll be very honest. I'm on a high risk list, and so a lot of my interactions are not with people outside of my family, and so but my nephew and my sister are in town, so I have been able to get some of that interaction, but I am trying to limit my exposure to public so I don't get out to as much as I usually do, taking that very seriously. But I'm well. I cannot complain.
Very good. So we, Delegate Price, we talk often, almost every day, but I wanted you to come on because you're very instrumental. You're on the front lines. You're in there with the lawmakers and all of that. Tell us from the state level again what is happening from your view.
Right. Okay. So since we last talked last week, the governor issued Executive Order 53. And if you haven't read it, you can go to any of my social media pages and it's posted. And I've also posted the press conference where it was released. But I want to reiterate one thing about Executive Order 53 is Virginia was not put in the same category as other states. There was not a shutdown that was levied on us. What Executive Order 53 does is taking into consideration where we are, where the nation is, and where the world is in this pandemic, what is important for us as Virginians to do in order to flatten the curve, like we talked about, slowing the spread of the disease so that those of us that are at higher risk, we can stay healthy, but also so that we don't shock the healthcare system. So what came out in that was guidance on essential businesses and non-essential businesses, guidance on banning groups of 10 or more. And then it listed out that the schools would be closed for the rest of the school year, and that then there's these other resource links that say, how are we going to deal with that? What does that look like? Because the state level, and I think I heard that you all discussed this, but the state level does general guidance, and then the localities can kind of take it from there after we've given the general guidance. So one of the things that I want to uplift is that if you text food or comida to 877-877. Again, if you text food or comida,
spell comida. Spell comida.
Well, if they need to get it in Spanish, they know how to spell comida.
I'm just saying, listen, you got some people out there that's hooked on phonics.
Listen,
you
I'm
gotta
challenged.
give.
I'm challenged right now.
Just spell food, dog. Don't even go to comida. FOOD.
Yeah. But if you do, but in all seriousness, the state is really pushing itself to have more of its resources available in different languages. But if you need Spanish assistance, text COMIDA. And that's, again, to 877-877. What you'll get back is a list. It'll ask for your address, and then you'll get back a list of places that have free food for breakfast and lunch for children. And then the churches, much like Ivy, I'm sorry if anybody else is doing it, but I know I had talked to Reverend Swan. Ivy is joining up and being a space for food as well. Churches and food banks and nonprofits are the ones that are really stepping up for the third meal of the day for the students, and then also adults that are experiencing food insecurity, especially with some of these layoffs. And so food access is super important, but that's why grocery stores and convenience stores or bodegas and corner stores are considered to be essential, because that's where people get their food. So that is listed in the executive order. But these places that can stay open, what we're saying is you still need to exhibit the social distancing guidelines of keeping 6 feet away from each other. And people are asking me, what is the significance of 6 feet? Well, don't forget, we discussed how the virus is transmitted. If I cough or sneeze, and I know this is disgusting, but y'all need to know, and the stuff that comes out your mouth, when you cough or you sneeze, that doesn't travel often much further than 6 feet. And that's why you want to maintain the 6 feet, because it can get on your clothes, it can get on your hands, it can get on the items that you're shopping for. You touch that and then touch your face. If that person was infected, you could catch the virus, and we don't have medicine to prevent it. We don't have medicine to treat it. So that's why we're saying keep that distance, wash your hands, your face. So, and then just to drive that point further home, you go to Target, you get your food, you got into contact with somebody that has it, you didn't practice social distancing, you don't even know that you've been exposed, you're happy, you're healthy, you go home to your wife or your husband that has asthma or heart disease or high blood pressure or diabetes or an autoimmune disease, and then they touch it and then they touch their face. That is what we're talking about. That is exactly what we're talking about. So, but anyway, these essential services, these non-essential services, and people are going to get, Pastor Swan, you and I have talked about this. Don't get caught up on the word essential and not essential, because this is not a shutdown. It is not saying that if you are not listed in this category, you must shut down. It does list some categories that do have to shut down, but it is based off the fact that there are some services in our community that you cannot provide 6 feet away from each other. So I'm sitting here looking at my nails right now, and I'm hurt that I can't get my fill right now, but I know why. I get it. I don't need to be all up in my nail tech's face, because I might have it, she might have it, and we would just be contaminating each other all day. My hair is going to grow out. Y'all, I'm not going to be doing too many Facebook Lives coming soon, but we want to protect barbershops. And in all seriousness, I know what this means economically, and I heard the congressman talking about what we're trying to do to help with the finances. But if you're thinking about, if I need to be 6 feet away from somebody, I'm not getting a massage. I'm not getting, there are these things that are happening. And so I want people to take those resources that the congressman talked about. They're on my social media, his social media. They're available. If you are a small business and you know that you're a barbershop, a nail salon, a masseuse, you need to be applying for those loans and those measures like now, so that you can be in the queue for some of these services. I've gotten lots of emails that people are like, how am I going to feed my family? And I'm like, no, I get it. I definitely get it. But also, I want your family to live through this. And so let's work on the economics on the federal level. On the state level, we are also doing quite a bit. There is Virginia.gov. Virginia spelled out.gov. If you click on that, there's a big old banner that says coronavirus, and then you click on that. This site is amazing. It has broken down basically what every single state agency is doing in response. You have questions about what does education look like for my child for the rest of this school year. There are places that you can go up there and click on the Virginia Department of Education. You want to know, wait, the federal people said I have until this point to pay my taxes, but the state said something different. Yes, it is different. Do not go by federal guidelines for your state taxes. I can explain that later, but you can look up that information as well. What does it mean if I'm a small business and I need help? What does it mean if I have a special needs child and I need help? All of that gives you links that you can click on in order to get more information. And again, that's virginia.gov.
All right, let me stop you right there, Marcia, because we have to run. So again, virginia.gov, and then also text food to 877-877 to get more information, correct?
Can I just say one more thing, because they can get a whole bunch more information. Tonight I am having a webinar, and if you go to my social media, again, it's MARCIA, Marcia Price, 7 o'clock, we're having a webinar where we are going to have people from these agencies answering your questions. We'd love to have y'all on.
Thank you so much, Delegate Price. We appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Y'all be safe.
You take care. All right. So, man, just lots of good information, Pastor Ray, that we're seeing. And now, again, Virginia, ladies and gentlemen, all spelled out, .gov. Go there, go click on the coronavirus link, and then every state agency is up there to tell you exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that we get this information, because what it will do is will help us be able to ensure that we help meet the needs of everyone that's connected with us in terms of community and congregations, so that we can curb the spread of this virus and really cause it to become disbanded, Pastor Swan.
Yeah, and it's going to take everybody to do that, right? I mean, we have to know that, right? It's going to be a concerted effort by everybody, and I'm glad that everybody's been willing to jump on and let us know what they're doing. And it's been great to hear from so many officials at every level. We're trying to get one more on so that we can wrap this up. I mean, the show has gone pretty fast.
Well, see, this is how church, community, and clergy works together for the betterment of all people in terms of the citizenry within inside of the Commonwealth and really all the 50 states within the Union. Let me say this to the church, to the brethren. Listen, we know Hebrews 10:24, forsake not the assembly of yourselves from coming together as in the matter of Sunday as you see the day approaching. But we can come together online like we've been doing through Facebook and all the social media platforms. So I think it's important.
It is. So we have with us Dr. George Parker is with us today, and he is the superintendent of Newport News Public Schools.
Wonderful.
Dr. Parker, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
And thank you for having me, sir.
We appreciate it. And, and listen, I know that the change or the issue by Governor Northam yesterday to cancel school for the rest of the year, I'm sure that was a surprise to you. You had already been instrumental in leading an effort of doing food at different school locations in the city. Can you talk to us about what your plan? Have your strategy changed now that you know that school is going to be out for the rest of the year?
My pleasure. I think when we were looking at the 2-week closure, we had an option of putting something in place short term or just looking a little further ahead and saying what is the possibility of being out for an extended period due to this coronavirus outbreak. So it's specific sites that we will be able to run indefinitely throughout this whole period while school is closed. We chose 6 sites because people will get used to going to those sites on a daily basis versus trying to rotate locations or bus stop delivery services or other means where we might miss kids or miss families. So we feel very confident that we can continue to run our federal program throughout the closure period indefinitely to allow the community to still to provide that service to students of a breakfast and lunch meal throughout this period. Right now, we're up to 21 sites, and thank you, Ivy Baptist Church, for becoming a site today. I think today was your first day being one of our extended sites. We're trying to, our model is very simple. We are using our transportation data to know where the kids are in the city, where they live, because we have to pick them up every day. So our transportation service has identified where denser populations of students are located in the city. And while we have some specific school sites, six school sites that are meal distribution locations where we prepare the meals, we have used our school buses to expand out to neighborhood locations that would allow us to get closer to those denser populations of students. So we're going to continue. Our plan is to continue to assess how many kids we're feeding. Right now we're up to around 3,200 per day. We're hoping to see that grow over time, and we'll continue to expand sites as needed based on not only community input, but also the numbers that we're seeing in terms of students and families showing up at these current locations for meals.
And we're talking with Dr. George Parker, who's the superintendent of Newport News Public Schools. And yes, so you did answer a question for me. If in fact there are other sites that might be interested in partnering with you, is that a possibility right now, or are you going to wait on that and kind of assess where you are and look to expand later?
Well, we'll continue to assess every week. Our goal, again, is to see that number grow. We started at 1,100, as you remember, and then right now we're up to 3,200 meals, individual students being served per day. We want to continue to see that number grow. So as we continue to assess how many meals we're distributing, whether sites need to be moved to different locations of the city, and then also, once someone contacts Kathy Alexander to ask to become a meal site, the next thing we do is we look at the neighborhood, the area around that particular area, to see how many kids are in that community. Is there a site that's close to, in proximity to that current site? And I'll use Ivy Baptist as an example. When you contacted us to become a meal site, we knew we didn't have anything right now around the immediate area, and we also knew we had upwards of 150 students who live in that general vicinity. So we were able to know quickly that would be a feasible site to have a drop-off meal service, and we added Ivy Baptist Church to today's schedule. So once individuals are contacting us, we'll look at the need in that general location, how many students we anticipate being accessible to before we make that determination to make them an official site.
Yeah. So one other question, and thank you so much for your time today and coming on. So the food question you have addressed, and I think for a lot of families now and even teachers are very saddened with the news that there will not be school for the rest of the year. So is there anything in place or any conversations about how teachers, administrators can still stay connected to the students to make sure that learning, even beyond learning, just making sure that they're doing okay? We know that kids come from adverse backgrounds and situations. Is the school system looking at that element as well?
Yes, we are. We're actually we still feel that we're in operation mode. So our counselors, our school social workers, psychologists, our teachers are making contact with families. So both not only through phone calls, but also through teleconferencing. We expect to continue to expand those opportunities, as well as continue to provide instructional materials and activities and recreational activities that students can and families can do at home as best possible. But I know our social workers in particular still make contact with the students who are on their caseload and connect and make connections with those families. Our counselors are still looking at scheduling students for classes for next year, so they're conferencing with students. As we receive more requests for assistance, our folks are still reaching out to families as needed to provide some level of support. I don't see that mission changing in any way now that we're still out of school, because folks have the technology. We do have, obviously, a population around anywhere from 6 to 10% of our school-age population in Newport News may have connectivity or technology challenges. So we've distributed right now over 700 Chromebooks to needy students and families, and we've also provided up to 60 to 80 Wi-Fi hotspots when those folks have checked out their devices and if they did not have connectivity in the home. We're going to continue to distribute as long as we have devices available based on need for families who do not have technology in the home or connectivity in the home, because the more kids we can get online, all of our resources are there. We will be continuing to work with elementary at the elementary level, providing packets, and still looking for ways that we can involve technology with our elementary school-age children as well, which will be the hardest group to keep engaged during this period. So, but we do want to work with families and parents. We know parents are really challenged right now, not only for child care, but also to build some structure in the home to make sure kids are able to continue learning. So we're going to continue to try to find creative ways to support families. When you look on our website, we have instructional resources and materials that are available for parents to look up, download, suggested activities, both academic and recreational, that families can use. And we'll continue to load our sites up with information and get that information out to the community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. We appreciate you coming on short notice. We're out of time. We have to run, but you are certainly welcome to come back on the show anytime you'd like to discuss anything.
Anytime, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for partnering with us, and we'll continue to work with you to make sure we're serving the community as best possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's Dr. George Parker, Superintendent of Newport News Public Schools. Let me thank very quickly Dr. Janice Underwood, Chief Diversity Officer, Mayor Donnie Tuck, Mayor of Hampton, Congressman Bobby Scott, Delegate Marcia Price, and here Dr. George Parker all came on short notice to give us good information today.
I'm telling you.
We have to run, y'all. On behalf of everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to someone else. This is Smooth 88.1 WHOV.